QWER was built on a lie. You think you're watching a K-rock band. But what if it all leads to Japan? The mainstream narrative identifies QWER as a project of creators brought together by Kim Egg to conquer the domestic K-pop market. Yet, this framing ignores the structural reality of the group's inception. When you strip away the branding and the music show appearances, the project shares more DNA with Bocchi the Rock and Oshinoko than it does with traditional idol training systems. The recruitment of the members, chodan, magenta, hina, and Siyeon. J-rock aesthetic that simply happened to launch in Seoul. The founder of QWER, Kim Gaeran, or also known as Kim Egg, has a vision to never directly compete in the saturated K-pop market. The group's branding, song structures, and narrative arcs were intentionally crafted to resonate with a demographic that prioritizes the band experience over the idol spectacle. Instead of acting like a traditional K-pop group, they operated as a J-rock band using the K-pop industry as a high-speed launchpad to reach their actual destination. Kim Egg utilized the viral reach of Korean social media to seed a project that was fundamentally Japanese in its musical composition and visual language. By the time their formation was finalized, the underlying blueprint was already set in motion for a multi-year trajectory. As the group moved past the initial formation, the industry expected a standard K-pop debut cycle. The release of their debut single album in 2023, Harmony from Discord, signaled a completely different intent. While the lead track, Discord, found traction on Korea's YouTube music chart, the underlying streaming data told a story that was disconnected from domestic trends. The song hit the Spotify Viral 50 Japan within weeks of its release, establishing an audience base in Tokyo long before the band had performed a single concert there. This was the first concrete indicator that the group's sound was speaking to a Japanese frequency, not a Korean one. Here's why this cross-border infiltration worked. The songs were engineered to deliver an overwhelming rush of nostalgia and technical complexity. As the bright, highly distorted guitar riffs kicked in, listeners were hit with a dense vocal layer that felt ripped straight out of an anime opening theme. Siyeon's raw, full-chested vocal belt in the chorus directly challenged the soft, heavily processed vocals common in mainstream K-pop lines. It was an explosive vocal performance that proved these internet personalities possessed genuine musical weight. By the time they dropped their next milestone track, TBH, they doubled down on this strategy, weaving aggressive J-rock pacing with bright, addictive chord progressions. The chorus was an anthem of raw velocity, relying heavily on rapid drum fills and frantic slap bass hooks. Rather than executing perfectly synchronized dance steps under studio lights, the group showcased raw calluses, sweaty rehearsals, and the chaotic charm of a real garage band. This intentional display of effort and flaws won over skeptics, climbing the ranks of South Korea's highly competitive Melon Daily chart. This musical footprint expanded rapidly through deliberate album cuts that went completely against local K-pop trends. Tracks like Ferris Wheel and the guitar-driven G9JB both featured on their first mini-album served as direct evidence of this J-rock infiltration strategy. These songs traded standard pop structures for complex drum patterns and rapid-fire guitar solos, proving to underground rock fans that the project could effortlessly match the musical velocity of anime themes. This cross-border strategy evolved significantly over the following year, culminating in July 2024 when the band integrated into the gaming world with Anima Power. Released in collaboration with Riot Games for the League of Legends Anima Squad event, the track acted as a massive bridge between global gaming communities and the anime-infused rock sound favored in Japan. To push the narrative even further, they dropped Fake Idol later that September for the second mini-album Algorithms Blossom. The track was an aggressive, self-aware critique of their critics, exploding into a thunderous chorus that matched their defiant lyrics. By securing appearances on Japanese platforms like J-Wave Radio, the band bypasses the typical promotional hurdles new groups face, utilizing their internet-native origins to bypass traditional gatekeepers. The music remained chaotic, loud, and technically precise, mirroring the frantic, high-energy structures found in popular anime soundtracks. Each release in this period served as a deliberate data point for the band's long-term integration into the Japanese market. This period was defined by the intersection of viral K-pop mechanics and authentic J-rock compositions, creating a hybrid form that was difficult for critics to categorize. Skeptics labeled the act a gimmick, failing to recognize that the gimmick was, in fact, the vehicle for the J-rock infiltration. While the public debated the validity of a band formed from streamers, the band was busy refining their technical proficiency and stage presence for the eventual transition into the Japanese touring circuit. The trajectory of the band's lead vocalist, Siyeon, serves as the most critical link in this transition, bridging the gap between the demanding Japanese idol system and the creative freedom found in QWER. Before joining the project, Siyeon had served as a member of the Osaka-based group NMB48, an experience defined by intense hierarchical pressure and professional uncertainty. After graduating from that system in 2023, she faced the burnout common to those who survived the grueling pace of the industry. Her recruitment into QWER represented a total reclamation of her artistic identity, shifting from a cog in a machine to the frontwoman of a rock band. Instead of holding back her volume to match a synchronized idol unit, she was encouraged to push her vocal cords to the absolute limit. In QWER, Siyeon was no longer constrained, allowing her to utilize the full range and stylistic inflections that make her performance authentic to the J-rock sound. Her personal history turned the band's conceptual project into a narrative of redemption, giving the music an emotional weight that resonated deeply with the Japanese audience. This personal redemption arc found its definitive artistic statement on the 9th of June 2025, with the release of their single Dear. The song's music video functions as a literal, verified biography of Siyeon's grueling pre-debut hardships. Visuals throughout the track reenact her real-world past as a lonely, struggling foreign trainee in Japan who had been forced to discard her original dreams just to stay afloat. As Siyeon's vocal confidence grew throughout QWER releases, the band prepared for the next phase of their operation. They refused to rely solely on streaming algorithms, recognizing the need to demonstrate their efficacy as a live, arena-level performance act. This shift required a move from the digital realm into the physical reality of the global touring circuit, the validation of their Japanese sound. By late 2025, the Rockation World Tour effectively terminated any remaining arguments regarding the band's status as a content play as they began to fill venues. The tour's kickoff with 3 sold-out nights at the Olympic Handball Stadium in Seoul provided the quantitative proof required to secure international bookings and Japanese venue access. Transitioning from the streaming setup into a 2-hour live show structure required the band to harden their sound, moving from polished studio tracks to a more aggressive and raw rock delivery. This shift was essential for the Japanese market, where the standard for live band musicianship is notoriously exacting. The tour moved through North America and parts of Asia before reaching the final, critical checkpoint in February 2026. The prestigious ZEP circuit spanning Tokyo, Osaka, and Fukuoka. By performing in these venues, the band skipped the typical path of untested rookies begging for a debut opportunity. Instead, they arrived as battle-tested, international veterans backed by sold-out receipts and an established, loyal fan base. The infrastructure of the global tour was merely the mechanism used to build this international footprint, which they were now ready to stake permanently in Japan. Having solidified their standing as a legitimate touring band, the final phase of the master plan was the official, formal integration into the Japanese music ecosystem. There was only one final step required to complete the arc that began in 2023, a public, unmistakable declaration of their status, a Japanese debut. The 8th of July 2026 premiere of the Tomb Raider King anime on Fuji TV, paired with the release of Chodan, marks their official Japanese major debut. This was not another cross-border streaming experiment or a casual gaming collaboration like the ones seen in their early days. By providing the opening theme for a major Fuji TV adaptation, QWER achieved the status they had been aiming for since their formation. They were officially a Japanese rock band. QWER bypassed the usual grueling indie circuit that overseas groups face, instantly cementing their status as a legitimate fixture within the mainstream Japanese rock landscape. Every previous creative choice, the Boki, the rock references, the J-Wave appearances, Siyeon's arc converged on this specific moment. The singular debut song itself was engineered specifically to serve as their grand introduction to the Japanese public, featuring lightning-fast double bass drumming and complex guitar harmonies that served as a direct nod to classic anime battle themes. The music industry has long viewed K-pop and J-rock as distinct separate entities, but QWER demonstrated that the barrier between them is a gap for those with a specific enough strategy. They avoided changing their core identity to appease local audiences, choosing instead to unveil the sonic DNA that had anchored their music that had been present from the start. They utilized the aggressive growth tactics of the K-pop industry to build an empire, then quietly transplanted that empire into the country that provided its original inspiration. QWER was never lost in translation because they were never operating in a foreign language. Each of these releases functioned as a deliberate message to the Japanese market, signaling their real creative identity. They were simply speaking to Japan and waiting for the rest of the world to listen.